champion.
E-A-T-L-E-S,
Swing and a miss. Struck him out. The Philadelphia Phillies are 2008 World Champions of Baseball.
Ladies and gentlemen, the Flyers are going to win the Stanley Cup. The Flyers win the Stanley Cup. For the lead. Yes! Iverson, wow, what a fake off Daniels as he broke his ankles and got all the way to the cup.
What is going on? We are back for another episode of Drunk on Broad. Rich's got some family stuff going on, some home renovation. So we called in. Well, he's a teacher tonight. He's a substitute. So
I see what you did there.
Here we go. So we got the best that I got. I got Chip for the Birds.
Hi.
My colleague, my friend, my brother from another mother.
And it's funny because we actually know each other from outside these little squares. So it's always we're like, all right, like we're gonna meet up online. It's like, okay, but I'm gonna see you tomorrow morning.
Right, that's it. See you in the AM. Yeah, I mean, listen, I was trying to explain to someone the other day that like all of these people that I do these shows with, besides you, I've never met in real life.
Yeah,
it's wild. So, you know, it's just fun. This stuff is fun, and you know, your intro into this led to my intro into this. So, you know, it's just it's nice for it to be able to come full circle. And now you're a guest on this show. Which,
hello.
Yeah, you can speak to the guest performances are always
they're fun.
Yeah, they're a lot of fun. So
I do my very best to just knock you off your game as quick as possible. That's always my goal.
Well, listen, I don't think we don't have any Manscaped commercials to get to.
Neither do we anymore.
Okay. Nobody has Manscaped. Forget
Yes,
Manscaped.
there's not enough Manscaped anymore.
Forget Manscaped. How about you check out some of our sponsors right down here, right? So we've got La Terrain Luxury Watches. We've got Team Clicks, which is your sports-themed eyeglass, sunglass wear, which are really cool, by the way. And we got two new sponsors. We got Shocked Energy, which is a new healthier-ish kind of energy supplement that you can add to your drinks, to which we have some samples coming. So Rich and I are going to do some live sampling along the way. And then we've got our newest edition, Streaker Sports. And Streaker Sports is they are a purveyor of all things authentic. How do I put this kindly here? Defunct franchises, Caddyshack, Mighty Ducks. They've got all sorts of cool, fun stuff. T-shirts, sweatshirts, hats, you name it, they got it. So all of those are all of our good sponsors. But now that we've got that out of the way, Chip, what the fuck happened to the Sixers?
Glenn Rivers.
Fuck.
I have never look. There's a lot of people in professional sports that are overrated, but I think that one of the best examples of that is Glenn Doc Rivers. You know, he won a title. Oh, he's one of the top 15 NBA coaches of all time. Okay, but you literally went into Toronto over the weekend and you put up a dud. You know, we didn't have Matisse Thybulle and this and that. Okay, but you put up a dud. And then
they didn't have him in Game 3 either,
right?
Don't.
But for a freak shot from a 7'2" center, you lose that game.
Amazing, by the way.
It was incredible.
Yes.
But for those things happening, I mean, you've turned the ball over 35 times in the last 3 games.
It's incredible to see the way
It's not more, probably more.
It could be more, right? To see the way that they played in games 1, 2, and 3, right? And to see them play like the games 1 and 2 at home were impressive. They played well, right? But then you've got the game in game 3 where they really have to kind of battle and claw back into that game, fight their way back. They don't lead until there's 0.7 seconds left on the clock. And then it seems like they kind of took their foot off the gas. And I don't think it was them saying, oh, well, we got this. They're just going to lay down. They know that team is not going to lay down. That team's got a hand. They're not laden with a lot of like marquee names, but they're laden with a bunch of dudes that are not going to give up. They're not going to lay down. Siakam is not going to be a guy that's going to take anybody's shit from anybody.
About last night is that you mentioned that they don't have a lot of big name guys, and that's true. You've got a bunch of scrappy players, and that's great. But what bugged me the most about last night is you didn't have to go against Fred VanVleet, who is the best ball handler on the team. There's no question about that. He's the best ball handler on the team, and he's one of the leaders of the team, and he didn't even play. So you lost to a one-legged Scotty Barnes, a Pascal Siakam, who, let's be honest, didn't have a great game last night.
No.
You let, my precious Okeechobee dude.
Oh, my God.
Shoot lights out. To the point of
lights out, but like have times where they were able to just get past, like they were able to think now listen, having gone down there last night and sat there and watched it, right? They were able to get wherever they wanted to on the court. There was never a time where the defensive part of their game ever shined. They looked
slow as all get. I said this on my halftime show last night with JD. You cannot run a cohesive, successful offense if you're not even getting the ball over half court until 12, 13, 14 seconds into the play clock, into the shot clock. And they did that consistently. They looked slow. They looked beat. They didn't get back on defense. They were taking the ball over half court slowly. And then knowing all those things, knowing that you're down like you were in the first half, Glenn Doc Rivers needs to go, okay, guys, this is what we're going to do. This is how we're going to fix this. And literally there were no adjustments. There were no adjustments. And you can't say that Matisse Thybulle was the problem because he was 1 for 6, and the only shot that went in, the Raptors put in for him.
Yeah, that to me, right, his game really has dropped off since the regular season. And I don't know if it's the I'm letting my team down syndrome where, he's playing in the home games but not able to play in the road games, like not having that continuity from game to game. But his game looks terrible. And he looks, his offensive game is so bad that he has in this series almost made himself expendable. Right? The lack of killer instinct. They were never able to stop a run last night. They played so lethargic. I was listening to an interview with Tim Legler today, right? Okay. And he said that he picked out at least 10 different plays where the ball was turned over and at least 2 or 3 of the guys are walking like to when that transition happens from defense to offense.
Absolutely walking. And the thing is, it's like the turnovers are a problem, but it's the unforced turnovers. So you're looking at it, you're going, okay, Joel Embiid has not had a great last 2 games.
Right?
He hasn't. He has not had a great last 2 games. He's also playing with a torn ligament in his hand, which, by the way, look, I am an incredibly huge Joel Embiid fan. But at some point, you have to talk about the durability piece.
Yeah,
because in every single playoff series, he gets hurt with something. And they're not his fault. They're not the back injury, the broken nose, the getting sick. It's not his fault, but you can't deny that it happened. So what do? You go out and you bring in another superstar name in James Harden, James Harden, I saw somewhere today, he would be the number 7 option on most teams, but for his name.
Yeah, I think people are or were enamored with the name and the idea, me included, right? But
of course.
And you're just because you're not getting Houston Rockets shoot 'em up James Harden doesn't mean that you can't get him to be productive on this team. Now, in this role, in this series, he looks completely disinterested. Outside of
He
minute
looks old.
old.
He looks old. And again,
And he's gonna be around next year because he's got the ability to opt in. Right before, when they thought about the fact that they would let him exercise his option, he would become a quote unquote free agent, right? But know that he was coming back here to sign so that they could sign someone else on a max contract. Well, now that you see the version of him that you're getting, he's going to opt in to that year. So he's going to be here next year. They're not going to this was the reason that they made this trade this year, was to get that extra shot at a title.
So
they had to put more. There's got to be more pieces around him. They just don't. They don't have the guys around him like the Bucks. Like the Heat, right? They don't have, like, if you look at how deep the Bucks roster is, right? The guys that are coming off the bench for the Bucks, Bobby Portis, right? Now that Chris Middleton's hurt, right? You're seeing more contributions from their bench, but those guys are coming off and they're scoring.
But again, but honestly, like, thinking about this, because the Raptors are not that great of a team, right? We know that they're scrappy, and now we're going back to Toronto, where once again, and I keep saying his name because he was supposed to be this great defensive player, but Thibault is not going to play again. Do you see a situation where this doesn't go to Game 7?
The only way that it doesn't go to Game 7 is if they go back to what they did in Games 1 and 2, right? If they can go back to the way that they played defensively, and specifically like the one guy that we gave, and I'll speak for myself, that I gave crap for a lot all year long was Tobias Harris. He has played incredibly in this series. He's played incredibly on both ends. He's had the ability to be able to get to the bucket at pretty much from anywhere on the court.
He's had a good series.
He's had a great series. But you need him to be your fourth scoring option. I think the fact that Toronto has now kind of settled into this small lineup and this really athletic, quick, being able to get anywhere they wanted to on the court, that's hurting them. That's hurting the Sixers because they can't match up defensively. Like, there were a bunch. How many?
But how many times did you hear Alice say last night? Well, I guess you didn't hear, but there is nobody in red and black who can stop They can stop Joel Embiid. But you know what? They did.
Yeah.
They figured out a way to do it.
They know that as soon as the ball gets dumped in, and listen, if they advance and play the Heat, same shit's going to happen.
Done. If they advance and play the Heat, it's 4 games and done.
Well,
the Heat are strong in their 5 and their 6 and their 7. Top 7 guys off the bench. We don't have the ability to slow that team down. You have a bona fide superstar in Jimmy Butler, who is going to absolutely toast Harden. You've got Kyle Lowry, who's going to show Maxey what the NBA playoffs is like. And Bam is going to beat up on a weakened Joel Embiid. And then you've got shooters in Robinson and Hero. How do we slow that team down when we're slow getting down the court?
Listen, I'm not going to sit here and say you didn't make a strong case, right? Now, I'm not saying that if they do end up playing the Heat, that the Heat will definitely have the advantage in that series. I don't think it's a sweep. But I do think for them to be able to advance in that round, I mean, they're going to need monumental defensive efforts across the board. I think if you can get Thibault back in a regular rotation, not missing away games, that kind of stuff, I think that's going to help you. I think it would be an extremely difficult series to play, right? But we can't talk about Miami right now. Like when Embiid hit that shot on Saturday, we were all
that should have been it,
right? Like get you either win it in 4 or 5, maybe, right? And now you would get what would be the equivalent of like a week's worth of rest. Now you're looking at like you could be getting a couple of days rest if and I can't believe I'm going to say this, if they advance, right? And that's never would I have ever thought that.
No, you thought it would be a tough series, but that's about it.
Right.
So let me ask you this, because I posted this question on my Twitter today. If we get knocked out of the first round, okay? If we get knocked out of the first round, which, let's be honest, would be a letdown considering what this team was supposed to be. And when you had Drummond and when you had Curry, you were kind of firing on more cylinders.
Letdown? I mean, that's like money. That's
who wins the trade at that point? That's the question. Who wins the trade at that point?
Who won the? I mean, listen.
I mean, Harden.
You got more productivity out of Harden than you were ever going to get out of Simmons. The fact that you were able to get a guy of his ilk and essentially only gave up Seth Curry and Andre Drummond, although it made your bench weaker. At this point, if it's a first round exit,
you got to fire Doc.
It's a first round exit when you were up 3-0. Then it's a wash, right? Then I mean, no, it's like kissing your sister. Nobody wins. It's so frustrating.
At that point, we absolutely have to fire Doc.
Oh God, yeah. And he's at the point now where he's got half a foot out the door, going to LA to talk to the Lakers about their job. Like, I don't see. I can't wrap my head around like, and I can't remember if you put this out there or someone else did, but like, it's the thing that boggles my mind in this series is that in Game 4 and Game 5, the Raptors made adjustments and the Sixers made none.
They haven't made adjustments all series, all season. Right. Doc Rivers doesn't know how to make adjustments. Instead, what Doc Rivers ends up doing is sitting on the bench and turning and just talking to his assistant coaches. That's all he does. Yeah. Watch. Do me a favor. On Thursday night, and I know we're all going to be watching the draft and doing all that stuff, but on Thursday night,
have like 73 screens going.
But I want you to watch the difference in the way that Doc coaches and the way that Nick, I need a nurse because I'm crying so much, coaches. Because at least Nick, call the nurse, is up on the side talking to his players, whining, complaining to the rest. Doc just sits on his elevated booster seat and turns and bitches to his assistant coaches.
Chip, I can't tell you how many times, and listen, you know my wife pays attention to sports about as much as the paint on the wall, right? And even she, sitting at the game, she must have mentioned 2 or 3 times, why does the coach constantly walk around with his, like, waving his hands in the air? And I'm like, because and to try to explain to her that, like, what he's trying to do is he's trying to advocate for his players. But in reality, what he's doing is nothing, right? He's not advocating for his players. He's not trying to get in the ear of the official to say, hey, look out for this. Hey, watch this. We're doing this. It's fucking frustrating.
For those of you listening to the audio version, What I just did is I opened my eyes real wide and put my hands up near my head and did my best Doc Rivers impersonation.
Oh my God. All right, so Chip, to wrap this up, if the Sixers win on Thursday night, it's because what?
Joel Embiid drops 40.
Okay.
Because that's the only thing at this point that Joel Embiid once more has put this team onto his back because he's not getting help from anybody else.
Yeah, I mean it's got to be. You're going to need. I'm going to say you're going to need 50 points between him and Maxey. If you can get
Easily.
50 points between the two of them, and you can get 15 from Tobias Harris, and you can get 15 from Hart, like in reality, you know what I want, Chip? I would love, because we haven't seen it yet, to have Harden, just throw it on the table and just like and be the James Harden of old, take over the game, realize that, and let Embiid handle the defensive end, let him handle all the shit in the paint. And
What do you want?
And so to me, it's either got to be a combo of Embiid and Maxey scoring 50 plus, or it's got to be a James Harden takeover, throw it all on the table kind of game.
Right. And that's what it's got to be. Like you said, it absolutely has to. Let's go. Unfortunately, we're going to talk about the Phillies, but unfortunately, it's the one guy I didn't want to hit a home run, just hit a home run on the Phillies.
Oh, God. Mike, what do we got here? Mike, you need a bench player in double digits. Mike, who's your bench player? Who's your bench player that's going to come off the bench and score double digits?
Yeah, man, the fact that we're relying on Danny Green right now to be a bona fide scorer right now it's crazy. Yeah. Danny Green has half of a knee left.
Yeah, and he looked – I mean, listen.
He looked slow, but he looked good.
Yeah. I mean, if you're going to say if there's a bench player that you can get to score double digits, no. Shake Milton?
It's got to have to be Shake.
No, like if there's somebody that could put up a quick double-digit spot coming off the bench, it might be Niang because he can pop a couple threes, right? It would have to be something like that. But again, in a closeout game,
if you're in a closeout game and you're relying on George Niang, you've already lost.
Correct. And on that note, on to some bigger and brighter and better news. Chip, let's talk some draft. All right, we have Thursday night. We got the NFL draft coming up live from Las Vegas. We started the offseason with 3 first-round picks. We've now got number 15 and number 18. If you're looking at what are you excited about this draft?
Honestly, not much. I am more.
And that's
fearful.
our show. Have a good night.
No. I'm honestly more fearful at this point because this is the first time in a couple of seasons where we've really had some draft capital in the first round. We always have our pick and we tend to botch it, and it's kind of just what happens. But this is a situation. This is a draft where it's a turning point in the franchise. You've kind of cashed in on your capital. You've moved on from a franchise quarterback. You've got some questions at that position, but you've got 2 picks, and you've got some decent names slightly above where you're picking.
Okay.
I'm not excited because while Howie did have a good season last year, he did. I'm going to give the guy his credit where credit is due.
Yes, the draft. I mean, you have to admit that they hit on more players last year than they missed.
But when it comes to making the correct first-round pick, I don't necessarily trust Howie. And looking at some of these guys that are available,
right?
I'm so afraid of a reach I am afraid of a reach pick. I am afraid of trading and getting somebody. I'm afraid of them going up there and getting a quarterback. And in a draft class, this quarterback draft class is not a good draft class.
No, this is a really bad quarterback draft on multiple levels. Now, the one thing that you can kind of rely on is the fact that because teams are so desperate to get quarterbacks, you might see quarterbacks go early before the Eagles pick, which is going to push more of those defensive talented players further back in the draft where it might make it more accessible. Like for me, the fact that you have 15 and 18, right? And then like I'm looking at the fact that they also have 2 3s and 2 5s, right? So like, Chip, if you're sitting there at 15 and there's a defensive guy that you love that's sliding, right? Sauce Gardner, Kyle Hamilton, Thibodeau, right? Would you?
You're looking at it logically already. You're saying a defensive player that they love. Do you really think that the Philadelphia Eagles are going to use one of those 2 draft picks on a defensive player because it's the smart thing to do?
I think that they have the flexibility that is going to allow them to move up if they want to, right? So like if you look at that, because I think I don't think they stay put at 15 and 18.
Do you think they move up or back?
I think if there's a guy there that they have highly rated that they love, right? If it's a position of need, right? If you look at like the 3 guys that I just mentioned, right? Cornerback, safety, edge, right? If any of those guys start to slide and they have the ability to maybe package 15 with one of those 3s and move up 5 picks, right? To get one of those guys, and then you're still turning around and picking at 18. And then maybe, if there's a guy there that you like on the offensive end, right? If there's a wide receiver that you want to pair with Devontae Smith, if there's a guy, if there's another edge guy or another corner, a guy that like could be a huge disruptor, right? A guy like Jordan Davis is there, right? Those are, I think, if you can get, I like the flexibility that they can move up one of those picks if there's a guy that they like. My fear is that they get greedy and they move back and then they miss on a guy that they wanted because they banked on a guy being there, and they move back, get greedy, and say, oh, we're going to get more draft capital. The only way that works out is like I don't want to move back to get another pick next year if it means you miss out on a guy that can contribute this year.
So, and that's what I was going to get at, because at some point, you have the one position that we talk about ad nauseum is the quarterback position. And you went into last season with the logic of, hey, we need to figure out if Jalen Hurts is the guy. And here we are sitting here a calendar year later and going, wow, every question that we have is still the exact same question. It's still the exact same. We got no answers last year.
Right.
So now we're sitting here going, well, maybe we're going to draft a wide receiver. Maybe we're going to do this. Maybe we're going to do that. At some point, you have to make a decision about Jalen Hurts. And that means you have to actually give him the tools to see if he can be the guy. Because Jalen Reagor isn't the guy. And I know that someone's leaking things like, hey, say that the Eagles, Tim McManus, say that the Eagles are willing to receive offers about Jalen Reagor. No shit. Right. No shit. Of course we are hearing offers about Jalen Reagor. Oh, and now that J.J. Arcega-Whiteside, he's gonna switch to tight end. Cool. Good for J-Jaw.
Right.
But you're still giving him no weapons. You've given him absolutely no weapons to be successful. Therefore, how can you judge whether or not he is going to be a good quarterback in the NFL?
Right. That's why, to me, I'm not like if you want to move, make a move on like Drake London, Jamison Williams, like Garrett Wilson, Olave, like if you want to pull one of those guys at 15 or 18, I'm okay with that. I'm cool with that because that gives him another weapon. And
and then at that point you can actually look at it.
Yes, the more weapon. Now, listen, putting more weapons around him, just like if you draft a guy like Olave or Jamison Williams, guys that are burners, guys that are going to be able to get down the field, but Jalen Hurts is still throwing the ball and can't get them the ball 50, 60 yards down the field on a line, then it doesn't really, putting the weapons around him makes no sense. Right? Like it either draft guys that are going to work for him, guys that are going to be good route runners, guys that are going to be good in space, guys that can get open over the middle, where his arm talent isn't an issue. But if you're going to get guys that are going to burn the edges, and he's got to he's got to pull the schoolyard Hail Mary throw where he takes 4 steps to try to heave the ball down the field.
He can't reach them.
He can't reach them, right?
So that's where you're going to run out of his ability here. He cannot reach these players.
I think that the draft class next year of next year's quarterbacks, names aside, right? There's a couple of kids that you got Bryce Young in Alabama, right? You've got the kid at Ohio State, right? There are a lot, and there are guys literally up and down the draft that whose ceiling is higher than the guys that are in this draft. So I think you're going to see someone reach for a quarterback early, right? I think you might see a team like the Lions, right?
You're going to see the Panthers draft a quarterback. They've made it very clear they're going to.
Now, listen, I did hear something very interesting about the Panthers. Did you know that the guy that owns the Panthers is a Pitt booster?
Yeah, Pickett's going there.
So
and I'm actually on my other screen looking through some of these, mock drafts here, and
right,
a lot of them are saying that.
It's not a surprise. That will not be a surprise. It will not be a surprise if Malik Willis goes in the top 10.
So what you're talking about is what I call April quarterback rankings.
Oh God, you're going to see guys that are going to be overvalued,
overvalued
because teams are so starved to get the guy in the building, right? And I think the Sam Darnold move could end up costing Matt Rule his job.
Yep.
And so what are they going to do right now? Right, they're going to reach for a guy. They're not going to take the draft his first draft. I loved when they went defense top to bottom, right? And they didn't draft for need, right? They just drafted the best defensive guy on the board. That is going to help the Eagles, right? Because other teams reaching for those quarterbacks is going to push all of that defensive talent and offensive talent, those skill positions further back. And it's also going to help them next year when they're going to be in a position to have the capital to move back into the top end of that draft, because all those teams are not going to draft a quarterback next year because they drafted a quarterback this year.
Except, so there's only 4 quarterbacks that we're even talking about. Right, okay, for being first round capable.
Okay.
Every single one of them should be in the back half. Now, we know that they won't be because of April quarterback rankings. But what we do know is players like Kyle Hamilton are going to get taken in the top 10, and they should. Kayvon Thibodeau is going to get taken in the top 10 and should. Derek Stingley Jr., Sauce Gardner, Aiden Hutchinson, these are guys that are all going to be gone. Once you get past those couple of defensive players,
yeah,
everybody else is kind of like, hey, kind of even across the board.
Yeah, absolutely. I love the thing that I'm most excited about is that there's not a guy right? There's not a predictable guy. Now, the guy from out, the
I
kid
looked
from
at 4 different
Alabama,
drafts, and each one has a different first pick.
yeah, that to me is exciting, right? That if I'm the NFL, that's what I want, right? I want that draft flexibility to say we don't know who's going to go where, so then everybody tunes in. Is there a guy? Is there a guy that you're excited about that you really like?
So I look at it based on need. Quarterback is a need, but we cannot draft a quarterback in the first round. Moving on there. There is no running back that is the first round pick. It is a dying position. Okay. Wide receiver, we need more weapons. Jameson Williams, Chris Olave, those are the only two guys I would take at least at 15.
Okay.
Tight end, there's nobody in the first round that you would take. Lineman, our line is actually pretty good. Our line is pretty tough. The only person I would take, and this would be more with the 18, is Tyler Lindenbaum, because we need a backup for Kelsey when he retires. Right,
which we know is imminent. We know that's on the horizon, whether that's the end of this year or next year.
But that's the whole offensive side of the ball.
Yeah,
I'm look at defense. I'm like, I get excited over Kayvon Thibodeau, who will not be there, but I still get excited about him. I get excited about Aiden Hutchinson, who's going to be in the number 1 or 2 pick. But then you look at guys like Sauce Gardner and Kyle Hamilton, or Derek Stingley Jr. I want one of those guys, and it is a position of need.
Right. So there's where if quarterbacks start going way ahead of where they should, right, and those guys start to fall to 6, 7, 8, right, and now you're the Eagles at 15, and you can say, all right, well, we're going to package 3 and the 15th pick to move up to get those guys, and you because you're training around where you have multiple picks, right, you're still going to pick at 18. You're still going to have another 3rd round pick. You're still going to have another 5th round pick. The guys that I'm looking at, right, I'm looking on the other side of the ball, right? I'm looking at Jermaine Johnson off the edge. I'm looking at Nakobe Dean, which I know is a dream, because they're never going to draft a linebacker because they don't value that position.
No, they're not.
That would be a guy, Chip, that I wouldn't be surprised if he goes the pick right before us to Baltimore. Right, that team that seems to me
they love those kind of players. But again, I look at a lot of these drafts, and I don't even see Nakobe Dean going in the first round.
Right, like Jordan Davis is another guy that I think that if you can start to secure, right, he could kind of start to fill in right into that Fletcher Cox role where he's just going to eat up the middle, and I think if you can get him to absorb players on the line, right, then that frees up your defense. That frees up the second level of your defense. And then kids like Andrew Booth is another cornerback that, maybe at 18 is a guy that I would look at. Chip, a guy who's kind of like a wild card in that with Treylon Burks, the kid from Arkansas.
Yeah.
Right. He's a guy that I like to be able to get to that position where he can be your X factor, kind of do everything Deebo Samuel X kind of thing.
With our history passing on wide receivers like we have, don't want to name names. Do you think the Eagles panic and automatically go wide receiver 15, even if there's a better position available? I absolutely think that the 15th pick is going to be Jameson Williams.
I think they love him.
I think they do too. I think that in true Philadelphia fashion, they like a guy coming off of an injury.
They see value.
And again, the kid was dominant. The kid was dominant at Alabama. I don't see, unless he gets picked earlier, I don't see the Eagles not taking Jameson Williams at 15, in which case they'll go to their fail-safe, they'll go to their safe school and Chris Olave. What I don't want to see is J-Jaw 2.0 and they get the kid out of USC.
Yeah, that kid's good. That Drake London is a guy that he looks. I mean, no pun intended. He looks like Kevin Curtis. Like he looks like a small-ish wide. Like
And the drop off, from Jameson Williams to a Chris Olave is significant.
Yeah, it is. Chip.
I just don't see a way that the Eagles don't take a wide receiver at 15, and then they'll take a lineman at 18 and completely ignore the offense or the defense. The defense.
Oh my God, Chip, is there a sleeper guy that you like? Is there a guy that no one's talking about that you like? Maybe later on in the draft.
Not really.
I got three guys.
Who do you got?
All right. So you ready for this?
Yes.
It's a position of need.
Please tell me about the punter from San Diego State.
I am.
Good, because I need him.
I'm talking about Matt Ariaza, right? The guy who just boots the shit out of the ball. He can, and here's the other thing, is that he's consistent, right? He had 38 punts that were downed inside the 20 from all over the field, right? Not like he's a punter with touch. He has the ability to be able to drop the ball in, but also flip the field, which is a completely underrated need for this team, considering if it's going to struggle the way that it did early on in the season, like it did last year.
People do not think that special teams can make or break a season.
Oh my God.
People do not think that special teams can make or break a game. You know, a couple of years ago, you saw it in the Super Bowl when the Chiefs' special teams and offensive line shit the bed against Tom Brady. You saw it this past playoff run when the Eagles could not punt the ball. And I like Cyclist. I actually thought he was pretty good. But I also was, at the beginning of the season, he was good. Excuse me. But I also thought that there was no reason why the Eagles got rid of Cam Johnston.
Yeah.
Who is one of the statistically best punters in the NFL.
Agreed. Now, what is too early to take him, right? You've got a fourth round pick at 124, and then you've got 2 5s.
Use a 5 on a punter.
Okay. I'm totally okay with that. I think 4 is maybe too early.
Agreed.
If you can take him at with one of those 5th round picks, you've spent 5th round picks in worse ways. And especially for a guy that can be one of your difference makers, immediately, right? We always talk about getting value out of those picks year one, right? That's a guy who can step in and immediately upgrade your special teams. All right.
And that's the thing. You have to look at your team and go, where are my weaknesses? What do I need to solve? And that's what I'm saying. Like, my biggest fear with the Eagles and having 2 first-round picks is they're going to draft some player that is a project player. We already have too much of them. We already have too many project players. I am of the mindset of the following when it comes to the NFL draft. And I've said this on every show I've ever guested on talking about the NFL draft. I've said this on my show. This is my policy and belief when it comes to the NFL draft. First-round picks need to be starters in the NFL by week 3, 4, 5, somewhere in that range.
Agreed.
They are NFL ready. They have to be starters. If not day one, I think top 10, you need to be day one starters. Second and third round picks need to be contributing members by the halfway point of their second season.
Okay. I don't think any of that's unreasonable. 4
through 7, you hope for the best.
Right. Those are your developmental guys. Those are guys that, you keep at the back end of your roster, that you end up on the practice squad, which leads into my second my second player. Right? Here's your first clue. His idol growing up is on our team right now.
Jalen Hurts?
No. His idol is Jordan Mailata.
Is this another rugby type kid?
This is Daniel Falele.
Daniel Falele?
From Melbourne, Australia. He played at Minnesota. He is a project. But we've seen how projects of huge guys, this guy is listed at 6'8" and 384. I think if you can take him in the 5th round or the 7th round, that's a guy that could end up being your next Jordan Mailata, right? Your guy who is a project developmental guy that works with Jeff Stoutland, who's at this point the best in the business. So I think you could spend picks in worse ways than a guy that's 6'8" and pushing 400 pounds.
I am okay with getting another project player because you know what? It worked out with Jordan Mailata. Nobody expected Jordan Mailata to be what he has become, but his natural athletic ability has helped and allowed this team to reach all the success that they had. With that being said, you cannot rely on that. And that's where I get concerned that the Eagles are going to take one of these 2 first-round picks and get a project player. They can't. They have to contribute this year because at some point, you have to come up with an answer to the question of, is Jalen Hurts your quarterback? Because we have no other options right now. Gardner Minshew is not an option.
You're right. I mean, but I think by the end of this year, they're going to have to put it. It's going to be shit or get off the pot. Like they're going to have to know that by the end of this year, right? Because I think their ideal plan, I really believe, is that next year is the year that if they're going to make a move for a quarterback, whether it's in the draft or whether it's in free agency, I think next year is the year that kind of push comes to shove where they actually.
That was supposed to be this year. You were supposed to get some semblance of answers.
Yeah. I think you did get some answers. I think you realize that you have to create an offense where he is functionally proficient so that you can, because when they did design the offense to be proficient for him, it was significantly more productive. So if you can capitalize on that, right, and draft guys that fit into that, and then that's where you're going to fill in, then great. I'm cool with that. But the last guy, Chip, is the son of a former NFL player. Talking about Quentin Lake. Do you remember Carnell Lake from our childhood?
Vaguely.
So his son is a safety at UCLA. Was the team leader in passes, tied for the team lead in interceptions.
Okay.
Had 10 games with multiple tackles behind the line. A guy that again, we're talking about guys that are later on in the draft, but it's a position of need, right? So just guys that I kind of caught my eye on some of these sleeper articles that are out. I don't know.
I'm here for it. I'm fine with it. Yeah. I mean, I have no issue with any of it.
Right. Anything else in the draft you want to talk about?
No, I just wanted to get here so I can start complaining about it.
All right. Well, speaking of complaining.
Oh, God.
Our last.
And it's really tough to do this when they're up 10-1 right now. I want to be very clear about that.
I understand. But they have, if there's a team, right, that, we've talked about in the past about, we went through this all last year, right? How they signed guys in the offseason, but they severely underperformed. And then we're kind of right back in that same, we're getting not nearly the production from the pitching and the bullpen. we're getting a lack of offense when we thought we were going to be the Broad Street Bombers, that we were just going to mash the shit out
And we're
of them.
having 1-0 games.
Now, it is like we're not even a quarter of a way through the season. And it is still not warm. But the lack of production on offense, man, that is something that is just really alarming. Outside of the 10-run excursion tonight, in the game that they're playing against the Rockies right now.
Yeah, they you know what it is though, because it's Dollar Dog Night, so they had to show out a little bit. But so again, I went to the Twitter today and I posted. I'm like, all right, here's my thoughts on why the Phillies are struggling this year. And I put it in order. I mean, it wasn't any real order. But one of the biggest things that I think is an issue is Girardi constantly shuffling this lineup. You know, I get it. Like, you have all these toys and you want to figure out what works. And it's early in the season. That's okay. You know, it's fine. You put. But how do you have, like, Bryce Harper batting leadoff in one game and then batting ninth in one game, and Didi's batting here, and then Stott's going to be over here, and now we're going to send Stott down, and Bohm's going to be over here. Like, it is a damn mess.
Right. And yeah, I think the fact that the Harper injury hurts them because it really limits their ability to be able to, be flexible in that lineup.
They're already not a defensive team.
Right. And now you're putting Schwarber and Castellanos in the field all the time if you want them in the lineup.
And
now
in center field.
And that's a whole
and
other.
Look, again, if you're looking at what he's done tonight, he's got a home run, he's got a double, he's doing great. But he's a piece of garbage.
Yeah.
He cannot be the answer here. And Roman Quinn cannot be the answer either.
No. To me, the fact, I think that if they can stay in the mix, that the kid that I like, there's the center fielder in Baltimore, and his name is escaping me right now, but he's a guy that if you want to package Bohm and maybe somebody else and be able to get a guy that's going to be able to be your leadoff guy consistently, be able to be consistently defensively reliable. I think the fact that they put themselves in a position to have to bring back Odubel is a travesty, because you can't tell me that there wasn't better options.
There were better options.
Right. But the fact that you didn't take advantage and bring in one of those better options, to me, blows me away. But Harper being in the DH really limits them in that lineup flexibility, because in years past, if this was if there weren't a universal DH, he'd be on the DL, and you wouldn't be getting those at bats from him right now.
And again, I look at this team. And you can't deny the offense, right? The offense is great.
Right.
When they're hitting.
Right.
When they're hitting. You know what I mean? Real Muto, Hoskins, Bohm, these are all great guys. Camargo, he's doing a decent job, enough for us to cut Torreyes, send him down to the minors. Segura, he's doing – and what I like about Camargo is he can literally play every single infield position. That's huge. That's the reason why he stayed up here and Stott got sent back down. And Stott needs the at-bats. He's a young kid. He needs the at-bats. And Bohm's kind of stepped it up lately. But Moniak, needs to step up. Roman Quinn, why is he on this team? Vierling, what is this kid going to do for you? You don't have an answer at center field. And if you remember, a year ago when we did our Phillies preview show, we looked at the lineup and went, man, this is a great lineup, but we have a problem in center field. But, it's going to be fine. It's just a weakness in center field. We saw that one weakness in center field does not work.
No, and Chip, they have not had an answer in center field
for many seasons. Since Doug Glanville.
Oh, God. Right?
Since Shane Victorino.
There you go. Right. He's probably the last reliable player that played that position consistently, that gave you productivity and wasn't a liability on any part of his game.
On or off the field.
It just, to me, I'm going to stay optimistic. This season is still early.
It's so early, but damn.
Yeah, it doesn't make it. It doesn't give you all the feels that you thought you were going to have going into the offseason when we said, look at this lineup. This is a murderer's row of.
But it's another situation of an overrated coach.
God, yeah. Listen, Chip, you and I could have sat on those Yankees benches, put out lineups, sat back and won World Series after World Series. Like, I think he was more of a product of his environment than he was a product of his baseball intellectual fortitude.
They got to get the pitching figured out. Like, Ranger Suarez is a better option right now than Aaron Nola. I mean, Aaron Nola had a good game last outing, but that means he's due for a shitty one next time out.
Right. How prophetic was it, though, that he pitches probably his best game in the last 2 seasons?
Oh.
And they get no productivity on offense.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So, anything else Phillies-wise you want to touch on before we do final thoughts?
No, I'm just enjoying this game. I'm enjoying this game right now. I'm going to enjoy it tonight.
All right. Final thoughts.
Final thoughts. I think right now we have an issue in Philadelphia, and believe it or not, for the first time in a while, it's not the Eagles in this problem, where the head coaches of the Philadelphia franchises really need to be evaluated. The Philadelphia Eagles are not a concern right now because Nick Sirianni came in. He's a first-year head coach. He got them to the playoffs. Yes, it was with the expanded playoffs, but you know what? He did the job. I have a little bit more faith in him. Doc and Girardi are right now, to me, bigger names than they are good coaches.
Agreed.
And if Doc gets eliminated in the next, week, I think he needs to be gone. And I think if the Phillies are treading water by the All-Star break, Girardi needs to go too. There's too much talent on both of these teams for them not to be legitimate title contenders.
Agreed. Listen, for me, final thoughts, right? I'm gonna, if you have the opportunity, the tickets that my wife got for me for my birthday to go down to Game 5 was a complete surprise. And I think if you're a parent, if you're in a relationship where someone really enjoys going to games, the surprise ticket is a power move. It was super cool. Like, almost had me stunned because she's like, are you excited to go? And I'm like, I had no idea. So, if you have the opportunity, right, to, pull your kid out of school for a fake doctor's appointment and drive them down to a day game, to pick them up from school and surprise and just start driving to a game and not say anything. That surprise ticket is such a cool power move. So, if you've got kids or family or partner or relationship or whatever that they're into sports, do it on a whim. Do that surprise ticket. Pick them up. It was a super cool experience. We had a ton of fun. Minus the probably the Sixers playing the worst playoff game in their recent history. So, with that, Chip, we're going to head out. You can find us on all your podcasting platforms. You can check out our sponsors if you want to go over to our link tree, and you can see all of our sponsors, all the deals you're going to get with La Terrain and Team Clicks and Shocked and Streaker. Go check them out. Go support your local podcasts. Hopefully the Sixers win.
Hopefully the Sixers win and the Eagles don't blow the draft.
Fuck Ben Simmons.
And fuck Ben Simmons.
Philadelphia Eagles are Super Bowl champions.